dicho muchas cosas sobre eso. So we are going only to see to make more things. So let's see. Okay. We are going to see what is it and the different type of cloud computing, the advantage and the disadvantage, and the cloud computing providers, and also, and at the end we're going to have some thoughts. Well, to dive in, I'm going to show you this video that explains what is the cloud computing.
You have big ideas to streamline your business and drive sales through the roof. But to get there, your ideas need business apps. And business apps have always been too expensive, especially in times like these. Behind each one is a world of complexity. They need a data center with office space, power, cooling, bandwidth, networks, servers, and storage. A complicated software stack, and a team of experts to install, configure, and run them. You need development, testing, staging, production, and failover environments. And when there's a problem, good luck. You call technical support, and they don't know, so they blame someone else. Oh, and when new versions come out, you would upgrade, but that might bring the whole system down. Now, this is for one app. When you multiply these headaches across dozens or hundreds of apps, it's easy to see why the biggest companies with the best IT departments aren't getting the apps they need. Small businesses don't have a chance. Cloud computing is a better way to run your business. Instead of running your apps yourself, they run on a shared data center. You just plug in, like a utility. This makes it fast to get started and it costs less. It's like Gmail compared to Microsoft Exchange. With Gmail, do you need servers and storage? No. Do you need a technical team to keep it up and running? No. Do you have to do upgrades? No. When you use any app that runs in the cloud, you just log in, customize it, and start using it. That's the power of cloud computing. This model is so much better, it's changing the way we think about software. Not just for consumer apps, it's also being used for business apps. We call this enterprise cloud computing. Businesses are running all kinds of apps in the cloud these days, including custom-built apps. Why? Because you can be up and running in a few days, which is unheard of with traditional business software. They cost less because you don't need to pay for all the people, products, and facilities to run them. And it turns out they're more scalable, more secure, and are more reliable than the vast majority of apps out there. Here's why. They're based on an architecture called multi-tenancy. With a multi-tenant app, there isn't a copy of the app for each business that's using it. It's one app that everyone shares. But it's flexible enough for everyone to customize for their specific needs. It's like a giant office building where everyone shares the infrastructure and services, like security, and each business can customize their own office space. This means apps are elastic. They can scale up to tens of thousands of users or down to only a few. Upgrades are taken care of for you, so your apps get security and performance enhancements and new features automatically. Now, the way you pay for cloud apps is also different. Forget about buying servers and software. When your apps run in the cloud, you don't buy anything at all. It's all rolled up into a predictable monthly subscription, so you only pay for what you use. Finally, cloud apps don't eat up your valuable IT resources, so your CFO will love it. And you can focus on projects that really impact the business, like deploying more apps. Cloud computing is a simple idea, but it can have a huge impact on your bottom line. For more information, go to salesforce.com/cloudcomputing.
Okay, Salesforce is really a big company that is selling cloud computing services. Is in the CRM. Is selling customer relationship management program on the cloud. So, according to what we have just seen, who is using the cloud computing here? Everyone. As a matter of fact. So I've seen Cedric using Flickr or Gmail, even Facebook is cloud computing. So everybody is already using cloud computing. So cloud computing, what is it? Is any service computing that is provided via the internet. So is any kind of application or computing services or any software that you can use through a web browser or via an internet connection. So this is what the computing, what cloud computing is. But people usually merge two things. A lot of people are talking about cloud computing, and they always talk about it as it was virtualization. Virtualization is not the same thing that the cloud computing. Cloud computing is based on virtualization. Virtualization is only a component of cloud computing. For example, the Connect project is a virtualization server, so it's already ready for the cloud computing. What is visualization? Visualization is when you have instead of having a SQL server, an Exchange server, and a database server, you have only one box, and you have several servers that is on the same physical hardware. And what is interesting with virtualization is that you can have, for example, the server, the physical server that is hosting the tree or several virtual server. You can have, let's say, 12 gigabyte RAM for it, and you can allocate to this server 5 gig, to this one 10 gigabyte, and this one 5 gigabyte. As a matter of fact, what the operating system server is doing is that it is allocating dynamically RAM memory depending on the resources that the virtual server are asking. For example, this is the web server and this is the app server. When somebody is going to the web server or another person is going to, if the virtual is seeing that there is not a lot of people asking for the content of the database, it will give them to this one if there is a lot of people making requests to the web server, and so on. That means you can have 12 gigabyte for the physical server and give more than what you have. And this which is called the hypervisor, will give RAM memory depending on what resources is needed, depending on the request. So what is important to understand is that when in the virtual environment, the main operating system, which is on the physical hardware, is called an hypervisor. So the hypervisor is not a common operating system. It's like a server, an operating system that you install on the main physical server, and then it's like Linux. Then you will need to have another software management to use the virtual machine. For example, in a VMware world, the hypervisor can be EXSI. It's like an operating system that you install directly to the physical server. Then you will need another software management tool called vSphere to manage your virtual machine. So there is two types of hypervisor. There is the type 1 is the hypervisor. It's like a software that you can install on, for example, Cedric has a MacBook and he wants to use Windows and a Windows operating system. There is there is a special software that runs only on Windows. You can install an hypervisor. For example, for the Mac, there is a software called Parallel. For Windows, there is VirtualBox. Those operating system, those software are hypervisor that you can install on normal operating system. But this is a different type of hypervisor, because this one is you install it directly to the physical server, which is different from this hypervisor that it's like this. But today, for example, in the Connect project, we are using as hypervisor Hyper-V, which is a Microsoft, the Microsoft project. For VMware, it is AXSI and vSphere to manage the virtual machine. So, in this case, you have an hypervisor which is installed directly as the main operating system that will support all the virtual machine. Then you install it directly to the physical, the big physical server hardware, and you will need only one physical server to have those other virtual machine. That means that you have 3 or more server with only one hardware. So what is going on with virtual machine? The technology company has a lot of data centers, so they can install Windows Server, Linux, and then to have multiple virtual server and provide cloud computing service. So these are virtual machine, but the cloud computing is about to give the service. So cloud computing is based on virtualization, but it's not the same thing. So it's like a component of the cloud computing. You need to virtualize to give more services to have the cloud computing. But these are two different things that you need to separate. So when you mix these two systems, the virtualization helps to give more cloud computing service, because in the cloud computing, all around the world, when the provider is giving the services, he needs to have multiple server that is connected to give the cloud computing services. So there is different type of cloud computing model. First of all, there is the private cloud. The private cloud is like you have your own cloud computing inside of your organization. You have, like in Geneva, for example, you have your own data center, your own virtual machine, and you are managing it yourself with your own IT team. And all the system is based on your own premises. So you don't have to pay anybody, and you're paying only your own IT team. This is a private cloud computing. And the public cloud computing is like when you are buying the services. For example, Google Docs. You can pay, for example, $5 per person each month, and then you have the cloud computing and the public model. So you don't have anything to do, you don't have any IT team, you don't have any infrastructure in your own building. The hybrid cloud is what the ICRC is trying to do right now, is to mix the public cloud and the private cloud. This is a way that you can have both services in your premises. You mix the public, you use for some application, you use the public cloud, and for some other application you use the private cloud. We are going to see what's the difference when you use in what case you can use public or private cloud. So what to consider when you are choosing? It depends on your budget. For example, if you are a small company, you will want to use a public cloud because it's less expensive, because you only need to pay and you have everything good. If you are a big company, you might want to use a private cloud because you have money to pay your own IT team and to have your own server room. What to consider again is security and compliance. What's happening is that when you have a public cloud, you don't have any control of the data that is what the provider is doing with it. In the compliance, you might want to use only Windows, but when the provider is having his data center, you don't know what operating system the provider is using. It might use Linux, it might use Apple, and this is totally transparent for you. You don't know. So if your system needs to use Windows, for example, this is a notion that we need to look into, because the compliance that they are using, you don't know anything about it. So if you want to use public computing, you need to know that this is not your problem. And if you want to use to master the type of operating system that the server are running, then you need to use your private cloud. Another thing to consider is hardware and virtual server control. And the same thing, this might have a Xeon processor, this might have an i3 processor, this might have an AMD processor. You don't know anything about that. And this is the fact that when you're choosing public or private computing, you need to take that into consideration. And the virtual server control also, what type of, because there is so many technology that you can use for the virtual server, then you don't know anything about that. So these are to consider when choosing. Failover control. When you have your own private cloud, you have your own disaster recovery control. Your IT team is there, and you can manage yourself, your own server when something is happening. But when something is happening in the public cloud, you just need to call, and then you don't know anything about what they are doing, what strategy they are applying, where the backup are saved, anything. So these are things to consider when you are choosing public or private cloud. And SLA management also. Service level agreement, then this is really important, the kind of service. If, for example, cloud computing server is down, they will have to pay you a lot of money for that because of the service level agreement. At the end of the day, it's all about money. If you have superset
and security.
Yes. If you have a lot of money, you can build your own private cloud. And for small business, they will most of the time choose public cloud. Then there is this was the deployment model, but there is different service model. The first one is IaaS. IaaS is infrastructure as a service, and it is really for sysadmin like us. Then this is a service that can be provided. For example, you have a server in the cloud, you have all the platform in the cloud, and you just only need to manage it yourself. This is infrastructure as a service. You can have a SQL server, a Windows 2012 server, networking services, security services. These services are mainly for system administration. Then there is the software as a service. Software as a service is like Gmail, Facebook. These are for end user. Most of the people are connecting to internet like Dropbox, iCloud, SkyDrive. These are software as a service. For example, you can have SharePoint, Office 365, ERP, service email like Hotmail, this type of thing. An example of software as a service is for example, Adobe. You can have, let's say you have you're an artist and you're always using Adobe. And then instead of buying a license and install it everywhere you go, you can only pay a monthly fee and have Adobe on any computer that you use. Then you will use Adobe on the cloud. The last one is platform as a service. Platform as a service is for developers. Like they provide you an environment like VB.NET, software environment to develop software. This is platform as a service. So You don't have to buy Visual Studio, for example, and install it on your PC software online, mainly for developers. Advantages. There is a flexibility, scalability. Then when you have cloud computing, you can ask for resources on demand. If you had, for example, 1 gigabyte of RAM, you can just ask for 2 gigabytes. And if you have more clients, you can request for another server, and it's quickly. You can only request you pay as you go. It's an on-demand service. Another advantage also is the disaster recovery. So when you have cloud computing, you don't need to care yourself about what's happening. You just pay monthly, and then the company is handling any problem. Automatic software update is clear for you because you don't have to do it yourself. Capital expenditure. Cloud computing services are typically pay as you go because it's much faster to deploy. Businesses have minimal project startup costs and predictable ongoing operating systems. Competitiveness. When you're a small business and you don't have a lot of money, this helps you build a lot of servers, and you don't have to pay for cooling, for electricity, for network, any kind of this. You can work from anywhere because of the fact is that on the cloud, on the internet, then any device, this help company to implement bring your own device. So tablet, cell phone, you can have it your application on the go. Document control increase collaboration. As we see yesterday with SharePoint collaboration and Office 365, this is cloud computing is evolving this, and people are able to collaborate commonly. Security. Well, security because of social engineering, for example, you don't have to care about that because when you have your physical security, I mean by physical security, because of the fact that your server room is not in your premises, this is the provider that has to take care about that. Integration is easier because of the fact that the software is hosted in the internet. There is application program interface that you can use to connect with other applications. Then it's more faster. It's more easier. You don't have to take care about that. Resiliency and redundancy. Well, one of the benefits of the private cloud deployment is that you can get automatic failover between hardware platform and disaster recovery service to bring up your server set in data center. Well, when you have a virtual server, and this is server 1, this is server 2, this is server 3, there is a way you can back up your server as there was a file. If there is a crash over here on the main server, this operating system is like a file, and then you can back up it to another data center, another server that is next to it, and then this server or the whole operating system will be back up to another server as you was copying and pasting a file. So it is virtual operating system. It's more easier to back up than before. When a server crashes, you will need to buy another server, unbox it, install the backup, install the new application, reconfigure the file, and that might take a lot of weeks. And then now these virtual servers are like file. You can just transfer it to another system and then restore the operating system in minutes because they can be treated like they was the files.
Did you try to install XP on a Windows 8 computer in virtual?
In virtual, no.
Yeah. Because Javier did.
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah, but it can be useful if you still have to use some special software that is not working on.
And since Windows 7, there was something called by Microsoft the XP mode. It's like a free operating system that is give you with license, and then you can install XP mode. Since Windows 7, it was possible. So, I was working for a company called Digicel in the mobile money department, and there was another company called Office that wanted to open an IT department, and then they hired me to do so. They wanted to get rid of the old system that the old sales system, and then they wanted to install a big ERP called SAP, which is a great Germany company. So they wanted to install SAP. So what they did, they hired me. They built a server room. They bought switches, cable. They hired consultants from Guatemala to come to install and configure the server. All of these expense was really a lot of money for them because they had to build from scratch an IT department, server room, hired people, IT. So now SAP is giving cloud service computing. They could have only pay a monthly fee, and they will be able to use SAP on the cloud, and then they wouldn't have to buy switches, cable, hire an IT computer guy to do everything. So they will only use SAP on the cloud computing. This is why the most great advantage of cloud computing is that it's less expensive and environment friendly. So you don't have anything to do, you just pay a monthly fee, and no cooling, no electricity, no security, you have to take care about. You no longer have to buy software. So this is totally the provider problem. You don't have to buy the software, and they give you are able to use the software 24 hours a day, 7 on 7, wherever you are, and you have only to pay a monthly fee, and you have, for example, I give the example of Adobe. If you are a graphist, so you are traveling a lot, you can use Adobe online if Adobe is giving cloud computing services. So you can consolidate multiple applications also. For example, if you buy services from Google and they give you Google App for Business, there's only one software is having Google Docs, Google Presentation, and so on. So it's a suite for the same price. And then you have no worry about physical damage, earthquake, inundation, social engineering, because the server room is not on your own premises. So the disadvantage. Now, everything that has advantage have also disadvantages. Well, since computing, there was always a security computer, and it has always been about the CIA triad. And so the biggest problem with cloud computing is about confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. Well, it has always been like that for computer security, and it is more now for cloud computing, because you don't know who manage and have access to the data. Where is the data stored and what law apply? Will you know when is the data breach? Will the data remain in the cloud even after termination of services? Is my data secure in the cloud? Compliance with government regulations. What if an attacker brings down my app hosted in the cloud? Can others, for example competitors, can see my confidential data? Because it might happen that the same cloud computing services is giving services to two companies that are competitors. And depending on where the cloud company is, there is some law that might apply. And you don't have really access and control of where your data is stored, what is happening if it does. If there is a security breach, will they tell you that, or will they only solve it and then you will know anything about it? All of these things are the disadvantage for cloud computing, and it's all about the confidentiality of your data, the availability, and the integrity. It has always been it's a security issue. Then there is possible downtime as a matter of fact that happen that the service provider is down, and this involves using or storing data that you are not comfortable having on the internet, the credibility, and this will get suffered because of the NSA thing. They know that they are spying your data. All these are disadvantage of the cloud computing. Other disadvantage is the inflexibility. For example, if you are choosing Microsoft, for example, to give you cloud computing services, but Microsoft is using a format that is called VHD, Virtual Hard Disk. So if you want, let's say you don't want to use Microsoft Azure anymore, and then you want to go to VMware or Citrix, but the file that you are using is a VHD file, and then it might be complicated to move to another hosted company because the format of the application are not the same. So this is a disadvantage. Another disadvantage also is the lack of support, because they might take a lot of time to answer you back, because that can take 48 hours. But if you had your own IT team on premises, then they could get it faster for you. So to wrap up all of this, these are the pros and cons. You have agility. You can choose scale and cost. You can grow you can ask more servers as your business grow. Cost is less. There's encapsulated change management. When there is a change, update, software changement, you don't know anything about that, but in the company is doing it for you. Anything related to update and changement. This is the next generation architecture. And cons are lack of control. This is really critical for organization like ICRC, because you don't have any control about the system or the data. Reliability, because it's on the internet, anything can happen. You are locked in. As I said, the format that they use is might be proprietary, and also security. So this is a wrap up of disadvantage and disadvantage. At the end of the day, what you can do to avoid all the disadvantage is encryption and multi-factor authentication. For example, to access the data, you might have to put a token on the laptop and then encrypt the data that is going through the server company and your system. So this can be a solution to avoid security problem. A multi-factor authentication like a token and encryption. So to finish with the disadvantage and the advantage, let me show you this video to show you how cloud computing can be really bad.
Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt. Dicke.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jode, Krebs und Butter.
Lukas.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiner war ein Befehl! Wer sind Sie? Keiner hat mit meinen Augen so lange als die gesamte Generalität ist ein zweiter Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge.
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbringen.
Feiglinge! Verweint das Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist das Geschmeiß des deutschen Volkes. Sie ist ohne Ehre. Sie nennt sich Generale, weil sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man besser Glaube hält. Jahrelang hat das Ding Revolution überhindert. Es hat mich selten nur Widerstand in den Weg gelegt. Ich hätte gut daran getan. Vor Jahren alle höheren Offiziere liquidiert zu lassen, wie Stalin. Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein auf Spitzenfeld ganz Europa erobert. Fahr weiter. Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es war ein ungeheurer Verrat gegenüber dem deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Männer werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden gesoffen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne. Jetzt beruhig dich doch.
Der Befehl ist in den Wind gesprochen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich. Er jagt mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
Well, for those who don't know, the MCSE is a Microsoft Certified Solution Engineer. So there was one of the team, the guy that was certified, Microsoft certified. So, well, I'm about to finish, and I wanted to show you the greatest vendor actually in the cloud computing. Software is a company that was IBM and Citrix were battling to buy. Then IBM finally win, and then Software is an IBM company. And there is also a lot of one, but these are the greatest one. You might know Salesforce, which is a customer relationship management. There is Microsoft, which is the biggest one. Durant, which is a Verizon company. Google, of course. Rackspace, Blue Lock, Joint, great company also. VMware. There is Citrix that we use here, and also Amazon services. These are the greatest cloud computing services that are actually, and there is also IBM. Now, as we are IT guy and we are always interested in having a certification, and because in the market these certifications are always valuable, there are the greatest certification actually on the market to be recognized as cloud computing. Why that give the certified infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, cloud view, this is for Rackspace, Salesforce, of course, which is really used a lot in the USA, Google, Cloud School, TIA, this is a vendor neutral, you all know, Amazon services, and Microsoft, of course, give the certified solution expert as private cloud. These are the, of course, VMware. These are the well-known certification for cloud computing. this company is an association of this is a negotiation of association company that is promoting the best rule practice to use cloud computing. And to finish, let's take a lot. I don't know if you remember, back in the day, there was this big mainframe that could take this place. That there is DOM terminal, okay, and you could have this mainframe, and all the processing we are doing here. You only have a DOM terminal, and then the mainframe will give you a percentage of processing unit, and then anything's happen really and on the DOM terminal. This was long way ago, but now Microsoft promoted to be that every home could have their own computer. Right now, everybody has a laptop. There is no mainframe, and all the processing are occurring in the laptop itself. So right now, with cloud computing, are we getting back to DOM terminal? I know company, organization like USAID that is thinking about doing this. They will have only a screen monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse, and everything will happen on the cloud computing, all the processing. So it's like we are getting back to the old system. So in 1997, the Ken Holson, which was the president of a digital equipment company, said there is no reason anyone would wanted a computer in their home. That was a long way back. But now everybody has his own computer at home. But with cloud computing, where every devices are being connected to the internet and the processing are doing on the cloud, we might be getting back to this old system. But nowadays, they will not call this DOM terminal anymore. They will call it thin client. And the mainframe will not be called mainframe and a big computer in the room. It will be the cloud computing. So instead of DOM terminal, we will have, like maybe in 20 years, thin client, and all the process will be happening in the cloud computing. So it's like where we are getting back to Ken Holson time, where he said there is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. So maybe we are getting back to DOM terminal. So if you have any question, I would like to try to answer them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will remark.